The Committee of Whole has returned from recess. Senator Lee, do you have a motion?
Buenas and half a day, Mr. Chair and colleagues. I move to suspend discussion on Bill 340-35 COR to allow DRT some time to review the bill, and that we rise from the Committee of the Whole with the recommendation to continue discussion when DRT is able to complete its review and provide possible amendments to the bill. Sidos Masi.
Imina 85 na legislature in Guam is back from recess. At this moment, I would like to address the chairperson on OFP, Senator Joseph Augustine. You are recognized at this time.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to report back that the Committee of the Whole has suspended discussion on Bill 340-35 COR to allow DRT time to review the bill, and that we rose from the Committee of the Whole, and that when DRT is complete, we'll come back and review the bill again. Thank you.
I'm going to take that as a motion, Senator San Augustine. So if you,
Yes, ma'am. It's a motion.
On a motion, just to repeat it for the record.
The motion that we had suspended the discussion on Bill 340-35.
And when the pertinent information.
And the purpose, the reason why we suspended is to allow DRT time to review the bill, and that upon their review, they will report to us exactly what their recommendations are for the bill.
Thank you.
you.
On that motion, without any objection, Seeing or hearing none, motion carries. We are now on Bill 314-35LS. Senator Paris, I will recognize you.
Thank you, Mrs. Dismasi. Madam Speaker, I move to place Bill number 314-35LS as amended by the Committee on Health, Tourism, Historic Preservation, Land, and Justice, sponsored by myself, Speaker Tina Rose Munoz-Barnes, and Senator Clinton E. Rigel. I move to place it on the third reading file, and I appreciate the support of my colleagues to reconsider this bill.
Thank you. On the motion, please proceed.
So I move to amend to add co-sponsors to this bill. I would like to add Senator Therese Terlahi for the efforts of her committee, and also Senator Kelly Marsh Taitano, PhD, for their assistance.
On that motion, are there any objections? Seeing or hearing none, motion carries. Senator Paris, you're still recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to place Bill number 314-35LS to the voting file.
On that motion, are there any objections? Seeing or hearing none, motion carries. Colleagues, we are now on Bill 373-35 COR. Senator Regine Bisco-Lee, you are recognized.
Mrs. Dismasi, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I move to place Bill 373 COR. I apologize. Bill 373-35 COR as amended by the Committee on Environment, Revenue and Taxation, and Procurement, sponsored by myself, Senator Sabina Flores-Perez, Amanda Shelton, Mary Camacho Torres, Joe San Augustine, Kelly Marsh Taitano, Clinton E. Rigel, Speaker Tina Rose Munoz-Barnes, Jose Pito Terlahi, and William M. Castro, an act to amend subsection 54B103 of Chapter 54B, Title 10, Guam Code Annotated, relative to banning the sale or distribution of disposable carryout bags made of plastic by retail and wholesale establishments on Guam into the third reading, and I would like to discuss it.
Senator Lee, you may proceed.
Mrs. Masi, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, our island is facing a mounting problem. The amount of municipal solid waste we generate locally is not sustainable. Last month, we authorized new tax breaks for companies who recycle and upcycle items that are considered to be trash today. The measure before us is yet another way to advance the agenda the Guam Legislature has set to move Guam toward a circular and sustainable economy. If we don't continue to maximize or eliminate parts of our waste stream, it will be sooner rather than later before this body will be called to borrow money to build another landfill cell. Single-use items are a major source of trash on our island. In the 34th Guam Legislature, this body took a major step to reducing the trash we send to the landfill by banning most disposable carryout bags made of plastic. Regardless of whether we act on Bill 373-35, come January 1st of 2021, disposable carryout bags made of non-biodegradable plastic will be banned. But the measure before us is the next logical point forward environmentally and economically. I thank you, Madam Speaker, and the bipartisan supermajority of our colleagues who sponsored this measure to phase out these kinds of plastic bags. Over the course of a year of diligent work, it became apparent that the term, quote unquote, biodegradable plastic is misleading. Yes, these bags will break down quicker than ones that aren't labeled as such, but that just means that these bags turn into micro and nanoplastics sooner rather than later. As an island community that relies on the health of our ocean life, we must do all we can to minimize the creation of these dangerous additions to our aquatic food chain. But there's also a practical aspect to ban these types of bags. Currently, the Guam Environmental Protection Agency has a valid concern that any fines assessed and then disputed under the current statute will result in costly chemical analysis that they cannot afford. For instance, if a resident reported a mom and pop store for illegally distributing plastic bags, the agency would be required to prove that the bag is not biodegradable. Because no local company has the capacity to do this testing, the work would need to be done by an off-island laboratory, resulting in delays and additional financial costs to administer and enforce the ban. I do recognize, after multiple public hearings and many conversations with business stakeholders, that taking action to ban these types of bags immediately would cause undue hardship to our wholesalers and retailers. Over the course of these discussions, there have also been feedback given on ways to make this measure stronger. We have been informed that 3 or even 6 months could be a sufficient amount of time to deplete the current local stock of biodegradable plastic bags and allow alternatives like reusable bags to be shipped to Guam. There has also been a request from the University of Guam's Center for Island Sustainability, formalized by its advisory board, to also consider a ban on paper carryout bags, which is the only disposable carryout bag allowed by Bill 373 currently before us. However, I have also been cautioned by local restaurants that paper bags will be a necessary part of food service into the future, especially at a time when many of them are resorting to takeout and carry out in terms of not being able to invite patrons into their restaurants. At this time, Madam Speaker, I'd like to propose 2 amendments to the bill that attempt to balance all of these concerns and requests.
Please proceed.
So the amendments create 2 points in time until full implementation. And if I could just pause for a moment, Madam Speaker, I just want to verify with the clerks that these amendments are uploaded. So just a brief recess.
Moment's recess. Y Mina 35 na legislatura in Guahan is back from recess. Colleagues, Senator Lee, you still have the floor.
Sujus Masi, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, yeah, I'd like to attempt to make 2 amendments to the bill at this time. And Madam Speaker, colleagues, for your consideration, 45% of trash found at illegal dump sites are plastics. But even more concerning, up to 60% of the plastics found in the landfill comes from the group that includes plastic bags. Just imagine that. Getting rid of all plastic bags can help get rid of a large chunk of what is dumped in our parks, beaches, and neighborhoods. And it can also eliminate up to 60% of the plastic that goes into our landfill. Earlier this term, we passed a bill to float a bond of $30 million for a landfill cell. Every effort to minimize what goes into our landfill has a direct effect on how often and how much we spend digging holes in the ground to place our waste. That is the motivation behind my second amendment, Madam Speaker. To balance the practical and valid concerns of the private sector with the practical and valid concerns needed to decrease our waste stream that affects the entire island. This change would delay the ban on biodegradable plastic carryout bags by 6 months to allow both wholesale and retail businesses the time and opportunity to deplete their current local stock of these bags and to bring in more reusable bags and an adequate supply through ocean freight services. And so, Madam Speaker, I proffer this amendment to line 6, page 2, to amend section 2 of the bill to read, effective date, this act shall be effective on July 1st, 2021, and to allow the Legislative Council to make technical corrections.
On that motion, are there any objections? It's to change the date. You guys got a copy of the amendment? That date will be extended to July 2021. Anyone wishing to speak? Senator Castro.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise in support of the amendment. I guess as the deadline approached, many vendors and other stakeholders in the community have reached out to us, at least myself. I think it's a reasonable request that they be given the opportunity to focus on getting themselves back on their feet and then moving forward with this noble goal. So thank you to Senator Regine Bisco-Lee for the amendment. I rise in support of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Castro. Anyone else wishing to speak? Minority Leader.
Sujus Masi, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we received several testimonies from Guam Chamber of Commerce as well as the Women's Chamber. And I know there's another amendment coming up, forthcoming, but the request was to have it for at least 1 year. I'm not going to object to the amendment. However, I think it should be extended a little bit longer. And hopefully that an amendment that will come up soon after this will reflect my concerns. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Minority Leader. Anyone else on the main amendment? Senator Therese, you're
My apologies,
recognized.
Madam Chair. I just cannot find this amendment that, I see the other two, but not that third one. So if you could just give me 30 seconds.
Yes. Senator Lee, do you have the number that you'd like to
Just
read
a
on?
point of information, it's just a change to one word. So instead of January, it would be July. And then everything else is the same. And it's section 2 of the bill, page 2, line 6, on the effective date.
Thank you. Senator Therese, you still have the floor.
Thank you. Yes, I guess I too would like to just ask maybe the sponsor. So we did receive a letter from the Guam Chamber of Commerce dated December 8th, asking for a one-year delay in implementation of this bill to January 1, 2022. And then we received a letter from the Guam Women's Chamber of Commerce asking that it not be effective any earlier than July 2021 and or no later than January 1, 2022. So the chamber cites, various impacts to the businesses that they have been trying to cope with, and that they even describe it, I think, as nail in the coffin. So I just want to know, I'm sure that the author, is aware of these concerns by these businesses, and I just want to know how we, how did we decide on July in light of that? Thank you. Should we
Senator,
yield?
would you like
Yes.
to have her yield?
Yes, please.
Senator Lee, would you like to yield?
Suzos Masi, Madam Speaker. Actually, this consideration was discussed in the previous measure in the last term, almost 2 years ago. And in the public hearing, we had some discussion, and we also had some discussion with local distributors of these bags. And they informed us at that time that at the time when, even before the bill had passed, that they had about 3 months stock on hand. And so that's why we're kind of coming to this compromise instead of, the 3 months stock that they had told us 2 years ago they had on hand. We're now going with a 6-month implementation, considering all of the challenges with COVID and businesses being closed and the like, Madam Speaker. And so again, this is an opportunity. The retiring speaker was correct in one of the testimonies by one of the chambers. They did mention July, so we're going with July.
So if I could, I'm sorry, but can I just clarify again? So when you read these testimonies from the chamber, are they asking that it be July for the original bill because, the original law effective date, or are they asking, July just for the changes made by this bill? If we put July for this bill, does that still allow the original ban to go into place for, in January 1, and then this bill goes into place in July? I think they were also concerned with the original ban, and if they could just clarify whether, this bill would put a hold on that original ban until July as well.
Of
Thank you.
2021. Thank you, Senator Tlahi. Senator Lee, would you like to yield?
Madam Speaker, if I could just have a moment's recess.
I will allow that. Y minuto 35 na legislatura ng Guam is back from recess. Senator Lee.
Sujasmasi, Madam Speaker, and thank you, colleagues, for the opportunity to speak with legal and to confer with some of my colleagues. So the amendments create 2 points in time until full implementation. And so we'll take the first amendment, which is line 6, page 2, which is 6 months after the enactment. Disposable carryout bags made of plastic, biodegradable plastic, will be banned. And then we can discuss that. And then I have a second amendment as well from feedback that we received over the course of our many public hearings on both this bill and the original bill on paper bags. So if we can take the first one first, line 6, page 2.
On the amendment, Senator Ferris.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So yes, there are a couple of things to consider, right? So the implementation date is very important. And so regards to the current ban on plastic for non-compostable plastic bags, that is coming up in January. And in discussing, so one of the considerations in discussing implementation, or sorry, the enactment of this ban, was one of the considerations that I had was, you know, what impact the businesses, what kind of impact this would have for the businesses, and will they be able to phase out their inventory? And so in one of the meetings that I sat in with the author, it was mentioned by one of the business people that 6 months would be sufficient time. But since that time, there have been letters that have been sent, which is a consensus amongst the business community that 6 months will not be enough time. And so the recommendation, so they're in support of it. They're in support of the ban. They just need more time to phase it out. And I think, you know, that's something that I feel is an important factor to get the buy-in of our community to support a ban like this. And, you know, after a year, they have no, you know, basically, they should have, phased out their inventory. So one of the other concerns that I have is the tourist industry, for instance. They haven't been able to open up, or many of them haven't been able to, regain full capacity. And, what would the impact be for them? Because there is a fine should they have these, pretty big fine, I think. Should they, not comply. And I think, really what's also important to note that, between the time of the first full ban on the non-compostable plastics to the time of the compostable plastics, the ban on those, I mean, that is actually a perfect time to increase compliance. Because at that point, reminders can be sent out to businesses saying, you better get rid of your plastic disposable bags because by such date, you're going to be fined, right? So, I think the period from that time could it would increase compliance and as well as buy-in. So I think, listening to the stakeholders, they all there seems to be a consensus amongst the business community that they need a year would be sufficient. So, I know, plastics are a big problem. We need to reduce the plastics. But yeah, I just think that, we need to consider what the business community is saying. And, I'm amenable to or agreeable to having it be a year. Because I feel that it's important to integrate with their comments. And so I guess perhaps an amendment would be to make it January 1st, 2022. So I would like to submit that amendment to the amendment.
So is that an amendment to amend it to January 2022?
Yes.
The amendment to the amendment. Anyone wishing to speak on Senator Sabina's amendment to the Lee amendment? If not, are there any objections? Do you have a point of information, Senator Kelly? Are there any objections to the amendment? Senator,
Well,
on the, Senator Kelly?
Yeah, so
On-
just Maskahelu. So I just have a point of information. I'm thinking along the same lines, and I know we have the policy of having our written amendments. I'm not sure if the previous speaker has hers written, but since we're of the same mind, I could add her name on, because I also have an amendment to the amendment for essentially the same time, to December 31st, 2021.
So Senator Kelly, you're more than welcome to confer with Senator Parrish, and she can add you on to the amendment.
Yeah, no, Senator
Or
Kelly,
dissolve.
I don't have it written
We would
right
have
now.
to dissolve Senator Parrish's amendment first. We would have to dissolve her amendment first?
Oh, so I guess my question would be whether hers is written as per the rules.
I'll yield to the good senator.
Then withdraw your amendment, Senator Parrish.
I move to withdraw my amendment.
On the motion to withdraw without any objections? Motion carries. Senator Taitsino, you're recognized.
Asaina Ma'asi. And I'm glad to see that the previous speaker is all in the same thinking. And so I'd like to add her on as a co-sponsor. But this also, it's uploaded, it's line 6, page 2, and it's to amend section 2 of the bill to read, instead of changing the effective date to January or July, those are crossed out, and it makes it December 31st, 2021,
Thank you, Senator Taitsino. On the amendment,
and to allow legal to make any technical corrections.
on that amendment, I see Senator Pito, then Senator Jim. Senator Pito, on Senator Marsh Taitsino's amendment to the Lee amendment.
Madam Speaker, not on the amendment, I just have a point of inquiry that I wanted to ask the author
ahead.
of the bill.
Author of the bill or author of the amendment right now?
No, not the amendment. I just want to ask, it's a point of inquiry that I want to ask the author, so I'll just leave it
I'll
for
go
now.
ahead and recognize you when it's time. Thank you.
I just wanted to ask, and I did talk to the author of the bill regarding, and she had told me that the stores, the federal stores are not don't have to be in compliance with this particular legislation. But I just wanted to ask that every time we discard our trash into the trash bin, we usually use plastic bags. So would that be, would we be in violation of that, or are we restricted to use the plastic bags to discard our trash into the trash bin?
Thank you, Senator Terlai. I'm going to go ahead. We are on Senator Marsh Taitsino's amendment to Senator Lee. One moment, please. I'm going to ask on an inquiry if the author of the bill would like to yield to that. You know what? I'm going to take a moment's recess. Imina 35 na legislatura in Guam is back from recess. Senator Chalayi, I'm going to go ahead and yield back to Senator Taitano. I will entertain your point of inquiry when we get to the main motion. But Senator Kelly, I'm going to yield back the floor to you. You are recognized. For the amendment? Do you have a further amendment?
Ahi. So it is written, it is uploaded. The amendment, I suppose, is that we're just adding on Senator Perez as co-sponsor. But I can read it one more time just for clarity. So line 6, page 2, to amend section 2 of the bill to read, section 2, effective date. This act shall be effective on, and struck out is January and July, and it inserts December 31st, and then the year 2021 is still there. So as many have brought up, there are concerns. We do know it's COVID. We do know that some places are closed and such issues. And so it seems to provide that flexibility that the good author had started and is supportive of. She does want to be flexible for the business community and do good things for the environment at the same time. So I hope the body considers this, just providing a bit more time, as the previous speaker before me had mentioned.
Thank you, Senator Tatsuno. Senator Castro, anyone else on Senator Tatsuno's amendment? Senator Moylan, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate the amendment. And I know this is the amendment to the amendment. I'm hoping the author of the original amendment, since there's been some time frame, I just ask for some clarity in regards to the extension of her initial extension, but would that be just referring to the plastic bags? And are we not including the paper bags? I may have missed something if the author of the amendment, and I understand there's a further amendment coming, so I'm hoping she can just clarify that for me. Madam Chair, please.
Senator Moylan, did you want the author of the original amendment to answer that?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, please.
Senator Lee, would you like to answer that?
Sujos Masi, Madam Chair, and thank you to the retiring speaker for the opportunity. And yes, he is correct. We will attempt to make changes to that portion in a subsequent amendment, but hopefully we can all agree to this. I proffered an amendment for a 6-month delay, and there's been an amendment to that to have it closer to a 1 year. So that's a discussion currently for biodegradable. So just for the benefit of my colleagues, what we're attempting to do is January 2021, non-biodegradable plastic bags are banned. The second part of that, December 31st now, I believe is Senator Kelly's amendment, would be biodegradable plastic bags are now banned. And then my subsequent amendment will discuss paper.
Thank you, Senator Lee. Senator Moylan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to the author.
Thank you. Anyone else on the Taitano amendment? Minority Leader?
Sujos Masi, Madam Speaker. I stand in support of this amendment. I think, as I had a discussion with the author of this amendment earlier, we talked about even, in the middle of the year of next year, to again, do a reach out program to businesses and individuals who have these plastic bags, to remind them of the deadline coming up sooner, and to prepare. Because if you're implementing a $1,000 fine on these individuals, we can do our due diligence and to help the businesses, to remind them and do what we can to assist them. This is going to be such a big change, and as it was mentioned earlier, through COVID, many of the businesses were closed. And they still have a full supply of these bags on hand. And if you think about it, those amount of bags on hand still going to end up in the dump if you don't even use it. Because they're not going to ship it off island once the ban comes into effect. So let's allow these businesses, as requested by them. You know, it's important that we hear their voices and bring it to the forefront. And they have asked us to extend it. So I think this amendment is a good amendment. I think it's a win-win for everyone. And I'm hoping that maybe later down the line that we can do an outreach program in the middle of the year just to remind them that this is what's going to happen soon. So be prepared. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on the title amendment? If not, Senator Lee, I recognize you on the Assistant Minorities Amendment.
Suzus Masi, Madam Speaker, and just, to comment on the previous speaker, the retiring speaker's mention of education and outreach, I just want to take the opportunity to thank a lot of our stakeholders in the community, to include the University of Guam Center for Island Sustainability, who has done a tremendous job since the passage of the very first bill over 2 years ago. Constant community outreach in partnership with many of our businesses, giving out their reusable bags at many different supermarkets. We've had educational campaigns. We've had a countdown from the UOG Green Army, Micronesia Conservation Coalition, the Guam Youth Climate Strike. They've been constantly pushing this on social media, calling in on radio stations, talking about this. So it's not just the idea of the fact that we're not educated about this it's a shock to me. So I just want to make sure that we want to...
I never said they were not educated about this. Okay, point of personal privilege. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So I just want to emphasize that it's all of our jobs to be sure that the public is aware of the work that we're doing here in this body. And so we want to make sure that the public is educated, that we bring everybody along. And I just wanted to be able to thank those people who have been working really, really hard to make sure that everybody is in compliance, that we reach out to a lot of these small businesses especially that may be especially impacted, and that we all are able to comply and do this for the good of our community. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Lee. On the title amendment, anyone else wishing to speak? If not, Senator Tachino, would you like to call a close, or would you like to call for the vote?
Call for the vote.
Are there any objections to the title amendment? Seeing or hearing none, motion carries. On the Lee amendment as amended, are there anyone else wishing to speak? If not, are there any objections? Seeing or hearing none, motion carries. Senator Lee, you still have the floor.
Suzus Masi, Madam Speaker, and I draw my colleagues' attention to the second amendment to line 8, page 1, and that's an amendment that on July 1st, (2021) will also, and we might want to consider changing that date given the passage of the previous amendment, but it will be July 1st, 2021, paper bags will also be banned for businesses that are not permitted as an eating or drinking establishment. So that would include restaurants and mobile establishments. They would still be able to use paper for carryout purposes, but we want to include paper bags in this ban, Madam Speaker. And so, again, that's line 8, page 1. This was discussed at length in public hearings, and so it would be to strike this exclusion and add subsection 54B103, a subsection A, and A1. So temporary allowance of disposable carryout bags made of paper. For the purpose of this section, disposable carryout bags shall not include bags made of paper and shall remain in effect until July 1st, 2021. If we want to strike that to be the same date as the previous amendment to the amendment, I'm open to that. Unless such business is an eating and drinking establishment as defined in 26 GAR subsection 4504F with a valid sanitary permit issued by the Department of Environmental Health of the Department of Public Health and Social Services, Madam Speaker, and also to allow Legislative Council to make corrections.
Thank you, Senator Lee, but I'm just going to remind my colleagues that this is the amendment on AB 373RB L 1L 8P22. Am I saying that right?
Yes, and I apologize. So this provision in subsection 54B 103A shall remain in effect until July 1st, 2022. So it should be July 2022.
I'm going to take that as a one amendment first on number one. Am I right? The provision of 5B 103A shall remain in effect till July 1st, 2022.
So the second amendment, it reflects that date.
Right, but I'm going to correct it here so that it's...
No, the second version of that amendment that's hopefully been uploaded and available to everybody should be July 1st, 2022. And I believe some of my colleagues are able to access that.
Does everybody understand that? Senator Lee? Can you just read the amendment, where the amendment is at right now? Can you read the page?
Amend section 1 of the bill to read subsection 54B 103, requirements for disposable carryout bags at retail or wholesale establishments. Retail or wholesale establishments may offer for sale or redistribute reusable carryout bags to consumers. Retail or wholesale establishments shall not offer for sale or distribute disposable carryout bags. A, temporary allowance for disposable carryout bags made of paper. So we're giving them an opportunity until July 2022 to include bags made of paper, and then once that date hits, the paper ban would also go into effect, and this remains in effect unless such business is an eating and drinking establishment as defined in 26 GAR subsection 4504F, as in Frank, with a valid sanitary permit issued by the Division of Environmental Health of the Department of Public Health and Social Services.
On the amendment, Minority Leader, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, can we take a short recess? Just a short one.
Minuto 35 na legislature and Guam is back from recess. Minority Leader, you still have the floor.
Sijus Masi, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it was we were looking at the wrong amendment. This is the revised amendment, so it makes sense now because we did not see the July 1st, 2022. It still reflected July 2021. So other than that, the question too was asked regarding these bags. A good example is like McDonald's or Wendy's. You know, they use paper bags when they're giving you your food, you're going through the drive-through and or even getting food to go. Bless you, by the way. So the concern was, you know, these establishments, are they still able to use this type of paper bags? And according to the author, she said they are still able to use it. So, and it shall remain in effect until July 2022. So my next question to I'd like if the author should yield to a question I have.
State your question, please.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, after July 1st, 2022, establishments like McDonald's, Wendy's, you know, all those that have paper bags, will that be the deadline for them to not be able to use bags anymore?
Senator Lee, would you like to yield?
Absolutely, Madam Speaker, and thank you for the opportunity to clarify. So in subsection A1, this provision shall remain in effect until July 1st, 2022, unless your business is an eating and drinking establishment. I hope that clarifies it. So if you're eating or drinking establishment as defined in 26 GAR, subsection 4504F, to include, you know, operations like Burger King, Wendy's, McDonald's, with a valid sanitary permit issued by the Division of Environmental Health from DPHSS, then you are exempted from this ban. They can still continue to use paper. But all the other retail establishments, like as an example, my mother-in-law owns a clothing store. She would not be able to use paper bags. She can sell reusable bags at her establishment to her customers, but she is not an eating or drinking establishment. She sells accessories and clothes, so is not covered under this. So once July 2022 hits, she will not be able to provide paper bags for her customers.
Thank you. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the author for clarifying that for me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on the amendment? Senator Tejano, you're recognized. Assistant Majority Leader.
Sainam Asi Maska Halu. And so I'm glad we're having this discussion. We want to make sure that we understand what the different parameters are. And so I think it's been really fruitful thus far. I remember at a public hearing, a discussion about plastic bags for vegetable and meat sections of different grocery stores. And so I'd like to ask the author how those fit into here, what we're doing today.
Senator Lee, would you like to yield?
Absolutely, and I thank the retiring speaker for the opportunity. So this goes back into the public law for the initial bill that was passed in the 34th Guam Legislature, Choose to Reuse Mogama Adzeki Plastic Act of 2018. For the purposes of this chapter, disposable carryout bag means any bag that's provided to a customer by retail or wholesale establishment at any point of sale to carry purchases. A disposable carryout bag shall not include any of the following. And these are the exemptions. A bag provided to the customer for use in retail or wholesale establishment to package bulk items, such as fruits, vegetables, nuts, grains, candy, meats, poultry, or fish. A bag provided to the customer for use in retail to package small hardware items, to wrap flowers, potted plants, or other items where dampness may be a concern. A bag to contain non-prepackaged food items or bakery goods. A bag provided by pharmacy to carry prescription drugs. Bag for newspapers, for laundry or dry cleaning. bags sold in packages containing multiple intended for garbage, pet waste, yard waste. And I believe that incorporates a concern that was raised by another colleague. A bag used to package and secure fragile merchandise. A bag used to help insulate frozen items. Reusable carryout bag as defined by this chapter. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Senator Lee. Assistant Majority Leader, does that answer your question?
Hungen, it helps me understand that indeed what was discussed at the public hearing is considered even as we're making adjustments. So Joyce Maasi for the helpful information.
Thank you. Anyone else on the amendment? It's Senator Perez and Senator Terlahi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yes, so in the first public hearing, there was testimony that was provided from one of the Guam EPA staff, and it was mentioned that perhaps maybe paper should be still allowed, and another person testified that perhaps there should be options. I think one of the considerations that I was thinking of is, I understand that the testimony that was given that there was chemicals, the amount of energy that's used to produce paper bags. But I think, there's perhaps a segment in the community that, for instance, like the tourist industry, like duty-free bags and all these things, and, whether they have the opportunity to really kind of weigh in on this particular ban of paper bags. So, yeah, I just feel like, just like we phased in the paper bag ban, I think there should be a similar process where more buy-in from the community is obtained to get this paper bag ban. So, yeah, it's ultimately about, bringing the community along and finding ways to incorporate their concerns, just like what was done with the original law. As you know, there was a lot of exemptions because of the concerns from the business community. And I think, this part should probably be vetted too as well. Because one of the perhaps unintended consequences could be that if we rush to get rid of paper altogether, then of course that may lead to reusable bags, right? But then, that I could see that easily becoming the new disposable bag, right? So just some of the considerations. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Perez. Senator Terlahi, you are recognized.
Thank you. So the amendment, I like the part that it says, unless you're an eating and drinking establishment, perhaps, I'm not really sure, but I see there is an exception to the ban on paper bags that is being made by this amendment. And that there is some time until July 2022 for the paper bag ban to go into effect. I guess my only concern is, when we brought this bill out to the public, it started off as a ban on biodegradable bags. That's what the bill was doing. That's what it was. On top of the ban on plastic bags, it was now extending to be a ban on biodegradable plastic bags as well. This amendment extends it even further now to ban paper bags. And I'm reading the transcript, so I'm seeing, the concerns from, some of those who testified as to why we want to ban paper bags. But I'm just concerned, yes, is the community aware that this ban is going to include paper bags? If they've been told we're actually in here to ban biodegradable plastic bags. So I share, I guess, the concerns of the previous speaker that I just want to be very clear. It's a huge change in business structure. So I want to make sure that they are aware of that. They never mentioned it in the letters that I saw from the chamber or the women's chamber. They mentioned, we are going to promote, they talked about plastic bags. I mean, so I don't know. That's just my concern. I'm just expressing my concern, whether all the businesses are aware that that's what this is trying to do here. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Anyone else on the amendment? If not, Senator Lee, would you like to close?
Yes, Suzuki Masi, Madam Speaker, and I appreciate the concerns raised by the previous speakers. I want to thank all of my colleagues for their consideration. This amendment is structured to phase in a paper bag ban. So we would have from now until July of 2022 to have that happen. And so it would give our business owners ample time to be able to adjust and to comply. And passing this proposal will give our entire island a year and a half to educate and inform all of those concerned about this new change. So I'm thankful to the minority leader who requested a second hearing to ensure the public was notified of our intent. Additionally, I reached out to a number of business owners myself and asked for input on this measure. And even after the second public hearing, the record remained open for testimony. And so I just want to emphasize that we did have more than one public hearing on this particular subject. In the very first public hearing, the possible paper amendment was discussed. We went around the room, everybody gave their input on that, and then we had a second public hearing because I agree it was a change to what was originally introduced. And so we had a second public hearing on this kind of substitute version, and so we discussed that paper bag amendment. So I just want to be very clear on that. And again, I want to just emphasize that we have a year and a half in addition to the 2 years that we had before the first bag discussion that we had on this initial bill. So, Madam Speaker and colleagues, with that, I close on this amendment. I ask for your support. And I just want to, again, emphasize some of the testimony that we received, that paper bags are very costly for business owners, and they're also very costly for our environment. So the production of paper bags is very costly, and it takes a lot longer to break. It takes, quite a bit of time to break down in our landfill. And again, at the outset of this bill, I talked about us borrowing on the bond market $30 million for an additional cell in our landfill. So it's costing us our health, our environment, and a significant amount of money. So I plead with the members of this body to please consider this amendment, and I thank you for the time.
Thank you, Senator Lee. On the amendment, are there any objections? Seeing or hearing none, motion carries. Senator Lee, I know you still have another amendment. You may proceed.
I apologize, Madam Speaker. I think I've exhausted all my amendments, but I thank my colleagues for continuing to support this next logical step. Our subject matter experts have said that this is a good policy. We've seen many others in our region move forward on these kinds of measures. It's great to know that our businesses are open to this change, and our children and our children's children, the generations far beyond, really deserve to inherit an island that can sustain itself. And that is the crux of this measure, Madam Speaker. And so I thank my colleagues again for their input on this bill and any efforts to improve it. I appreciate that very much. Sidos Masi.
Thank you, Senator Lee. On the main motion, Senator Perez, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I do
On
have
the
a,
main motion,
yes, that's correct.
yeah.
I do have an amendment to proffer, and it's to add a new section to the bill. So let me just find out.
Please proceed.
So it's labeled as AB 373 SFPL 10P2. And it's section 2, so it's a new section. And I do understand there's been amendments that have been passed, so I definitely would have liked to allow legal to make any technical corrections to conform to the other amendments. So effective date for disposable carryout bags made of plastic, including plastics made from bio-based polymers that are biodegradable, are compostable, or made of high-density polyethylene film marked with the SPI resin identification code 2. So of course the date is changed beginning on January 1st, but now it's been December. No retail establishment, wholesale establishment, or any other entity licensed under Chapter 70 of Title 11, Guam Code annotated to do business shall purchase or sell or distribute to consumers any disposable carryout bags made out of plastic, including plastics made from bio-based polymers that are biodegradable or compostable or made of high-density polyethylene film marked with the SPI resin identification code 2 within Guam. Any entity found in violation of this section shall be subject to a civil penalty pursuant to Section 54B004 of this chapter. All fees collected pursuant to this chapter shall be deposited in the solid waste fund. So this was a recommendation made by the administrator of Guam EPA, Walter Leon Guerrero, that any kind of fines be placed into this fund in lieu of the recycling revolving fund.
Thank you, Senator Perez. On the Perez amendment, anyone wishing to speak? If not, are there any objections? Senator Lee, you are recognized.
I apologize, Madam Speaker. If I could just have a moment's recess. There's some language that I believe may have been omitted in a previous amendment. So I just want to ensure that with the passage of this amendment, to allow for the fines to go to this fund, which I have no objection to, if it doesn't inadvertently restore some of that language that we just took out back into the bill. So I just want to make sure I'm clarified on
I will
that.
give you that moment's recess. y minuto 35 en la legislatura en Guam is back from recess. Senator Paris, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam
understand you're gonna-
Speaker. I move to withdraw my previous amendment.
On that motion, without any objection, seeing or hearing none, motion carries. Senator Paris?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I do have an alternate amendment to proffer, but let me just double check if it's uploaded.
It's uploaded. Is that the one on page 2, line 7?
Okay. Yes, thank you. It's labeled AB 373 SFPL7P2. It's line 7, page 2, to add a new section to the bill to read. So it's a new section. Section 54B105C of Chapter 54B, Title 10 is amended to read, all fees collected pursuant to this chapter shall be deposited in the solid waste, actually it should be operation fund.
Are you going to change solid waste to operation
Yeah, it should be solid waste operation fund.
to include the word operation?
Yes.
I'm going to
And-
save a tree right now to add the word operation behind solid waste. Are there any objections? Seeing or hearing none, motion carries. So it's solid waste operation management fund. Am I correct?
Yes, and also to allow legal to make any technical corrections.
Thank you. On that amendment, are there anyone wishing to speak? Are there any objections? Seeing or hearing none, motion carries. Do you have any more amendments, Senator Paris, or
No.
on the motion?
No, no more.
Thank you. Anyone else on the main motion? If not, Senator Moylan, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry, I'm just sending now an amendment to the clerk. If I can ask one moment, please.
Say that again. I did not hear you.
I have an amendment I wish to offer, and I'm just sending it now to the clerk, Madam Chair. Request just a moment's recess, please.
I will wait for the clerk. All right.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair.
We're back. 35th Guam Legislature is back. Senator Moylan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, colleagues. I'll give my explanation on the amendment I'm about to introduce, but for my colleagues' attention, it's in our folder. It's labeled JCM New Section. JCM New Section. Madam Chair, with this bill that we're discussing, 37335, with all the amendments on the floor as well, basically we're addressing Public Law 34110, which was passed by the 34th Guam Legislature back in 2018. It had an effective date of January 1st, 2021, which my colleagues have mentioned. It gave us time to prepare, a year and a half to prepare for these changes in the public law. And if the retailers and wholesalers did not prepare, then there were fines imposed. Fines for a first offense is $500. For the second offense is $1,000. And if the establishment continues to violate, it can go up as high as $10,000 for a period of 1 year. And the whole idea on that public law 34110, which is a good idea, is banning single-use disposable carryout bags. It was a slogan called "Choose to Reuse," real catchy. And the public law, though, said that disposable carryout bags shall not include any bags used for bulky items like fruits or vegetables or meat or fish and small hardware stuff, flowers and pants, because of dampness, and bakery goods, prescription drugs, newspapers, dry cleaning, pet and yard waste, and frozen items. So that disposable carryout bags didn't include those things. But the public law did say that requirements for disposable carryout bags for retail or wholesale establishments, not any particular retail, just retail in general, or wholesale. Those are all the companies. They said, the public law did say you can use the disposable carryout bags made of paper. So we had a year and a half to prepare for that, effective January 1, 2021. And all this education went out, and a lot of businesses were talking about it, and some good ones too, and it was helpful, and it's a good idea. And then it also said you can use disposable bags that are biodegradable or combustible, or this high-density polyethylene film marked SBI resin code 2. Whatever that is, I don't know. But it said you can use it. And this law is supposed to be implemented in less than 3 weeks. Now, we made some amendments, floor amendments to this, and probably some good ones too, but it doesn't address what the original law addressed. It said all these retailers and all you wholesalers, you can use the paper bags and you can use the disposable bags. So most likely they probably ordered all this stuff in anticipation of the effective date, which is less than 3 weeks away. So yes, we've tried to make some amendments to address this, but it doesn't address the original public law in its entirety. We're sectioning out some folks. And so much so that it brought to the attention of more testimony, which we've kind of heard, but I just want to point out again of dissatisfaction of us discussing this law again in such a short amount of period of time. Like, for example, one of our biggest grocery stores, who have done a great job in promoting recyclable bags, sent another letter dated December 9th, 2020, with encouraging us, well, rather, the following is a furtherance of their previous submitted testimony in support of Bill 37335, with the amendment of removing the exemption of plastic bags. And they further stated, in light of the ongoing pandemic that has severe impacted our island, including the crippling of many local business, I wish to insert an additional amendment to the bill to delay the implementation date to January 2022. And they also encourage the establishment of a countdown calendar with specific benchmarks to establish a public awareness campaign. So that's one. We may mention to the Guam Chamber also pleading with us. They said that many of these businesses have inventories of bags that would take time to depreciate, even in the best of times. We're in an emergency pandemic. The emergency pandemic has played havoc in all our lives this year, and we need to allow our residents, guests, and local business time to plan for this pending zero plastic bags. So we beseech members of the 35th Guam Legislature to please have compassion and not give us additional burden on Bill 37335. What would have, our community at a time of amending the implementation, so please implement it to 2022. The Guam Women's Chamber also wants to postpone, if we can't postpone Bill 37335 as well, then go to January 1st of 2022. Yes, we have made amendments to this bill. It's better than as originally introduced, but it doesn't address everything of the original law, what the original law has done. It's taken out things and it's extended some periods, but it's not addressing what the business community is asking us, what was originally agreed upon before. And now we're changing the rules within 3 weeks period. During this pandemic time, during the time when businesses are trying to make ends meet and just wondering if they should even open their doors. So, Madam Speaker, I wish to offer the amendment I submitted here, and let me just refer to this.
Thank you, Senator Moylan. On the amendment, Senator Lee, you're recognized.
Suzus Masi, Madam Speaker, and I can appreciate some of the statements made by the proffer of this amendment. I rise in strenuous objection to this amendment, and I think it behooves our body to really take a look at the letters that were received from the Guam Chamber of Commerce, the Guam Women's Chamber. All of those letters were in response to Bill 373. The amendment before us is amending the previous law and asking for a postponement on the previous law. That was not in the discussion of any of the letters that we received, supplemental testimony that we received from the chambers. That was not their request. Madam Speaker, the local market now has biodegradable plastic bags that they can fall back on up until December 31st of next year. This will be the harmless alternative when the original ban proceeds. And I object because the local market can bear the use of biodegradable plastic bags. Today, we have given our business community an additional year to rely on these biodegradable plastic bags as well as paper bags for a year and a half. And the preparation has been to stop ordering non-biodegradable bags. This original bill passed almost 2 years ago, Madam Speaker, so there's been ample time to get rid of that stock. And again, there was no testimony that we received from the business community to make adjustments to the original law. They were commenting on the bill before us, which is Bill 373, and previous amendments have already addressed that. And so I just want to make it very, very plain, Madam Speaker, that that's what we came in here to discuss. Sutus Masi.
Thank you. Anyone else on the main amendment? Anyone else? If not, Senator Meritorious, you're recognized.
Madam Speaker, if the good author of this amendment will just yield, I'm looking at the section that is intended to be amend it, and essentially it's an amendment to the date, but I'm trying to understand the net effect of it, because this particular section of Chapter 54B of Title 10 talks about the banning of plastic bags, disposable plastic bags, and it gives, though, the exception, and the exception is listed as items 1 through 11 of 54B 102B1, or 1 through 11, but those are bags that are, as I'm looking at the statute right now, it has to do with, bulk bags for carrying bulk foods, items, vegetables, packaging small hardware goods, vegetation, bakery goods, prescription drugs, newspapers, laundry, dry cleaning. It has all the exceptions. So I'm just, my question is I know that those bags now are intact. We're not affecting those types of bags, which many of us are concerned about, the basic things when we go to the grocery store and they put seafood in a bag, for example. But I just want to ask the author, what is the net effect of this amendment that wasn't already accomplished by the other amendments? I mean, does this add something, or is this a necessary amendment that wasn't already included? Because everything else with the banned bags, I believe, was addressed previously. And this gives a ban, this section more or less talks about banning certain types, but having an exception to other types, and the exception is listed in 1 to 11. So I'm just trying to understand, whether this is a good amendment to support, or has it already been accomplished by other amendments?
Thank you, Senator Torres. Senator Moreland, would you like to yield?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you for the question. So the original law says we can use disposable bags that are biodegradable or combustible or high-density polyethylene film marked SPI resin code. So the previous amendments, I'm feeling, and which maybe it's not right, or maybe another of my colleagues can assist, is that we are eliminating this completely, right? And you just use the brown paper bags. And so therefore, by the way, Madam Speaker, if I can just read the amendment just for the record also. The amendment adds to add a new section to the bill to read subsection 54B105A to Chapter 54B, Title 10, Guam Code Annotated, is hereby amended to read: A, beginning on January 1st, 2022, we scratched out 2021, no retail establishment, wholesale establishment, or any other entity licensed under Chapter 70 of Title 11 Code Annotated to do business shall purchase or sell or distribute to consumers any disposable carry-out plastic bags, except disposable carry-out bags listed in 54B 102B 1 through 11 of this chapter within Guam. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Mary, does that help? Okay. Anyone else on the Moylan Amendment? Senator Chalahi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yeah, it is very confusing. It's taking my full attention to make sure I'm getting this straight. So, yeah, so there are 3 dates that we're dealing with. First is the ban on plastic bags altogether, and that is going into effect January 1. We're not touching that ban by this bill unless we pass that amendment that the senator has, that is before us right now. That amendment would extend the ban on plastic bags beyond January 1st, 21. And on top of that, we are now putting a ban, by this bill, putting a ban on biodegradable bags effective January 2022 or December 31, 2021. Yeah, in a year from now, a ban on biodegradable plastic bags. And then 6 months after that, this bill is putting a ban on paper bags. And I guess, yeah, I was, I'm trying to read the testimony, and it's correct that, the Women's Chamber is only asking for an extension on the biodegradable bag ban. They're very clear. The Guam Chamber, I don't know, I guess you could interpret it either way, that they're asking definitely for an extension of a biodegradable ban, but they point out, what the emergency pandemic has caused havoc in the businesses, and that, transition to reusable bags takes a considerable amount of shipping time, requires capital businesses, and education of the community at large. I read the testimony of the bill. A lot of it talks about, bringing the community along and making sure that they're informed. And even, I guess I just read right now the Payless letter that was referred to by the sponsor of the amendment. And they want an education campaign. I guess what I'm just trying to determine is, if there is a need to extend, delay the ban on plastic bags because of COVID in particular. And I know there was some discussion on, trying to show that it's not a factor, or some people are not worried about it being a factor in the transmission of the disease. But I don't know, because I also, there's articles from Loma Linda. This is on April 2020, Loma Linda University of Health, and others where they talk about reusable plastic bags are safe if you do these certain things with them. And so there's a huge, even that I think needs an educational campaign in and of itself, was how to disinfect your reusable bag. And then I'm going to be following the person in the grocery store who's using the reusable bag. I don't know if they've cleaned it or not, and then it's possible that we expose each other, or the workers in the stores. I know that the stores had themselves, put that on hold for a while. I think they're back to using them now. I'm not so sure about all the establishments, but I guess I'm going to think about it. But I am still concerned with. Well, I guess I'll talk about that later. But so on this amendment, just the extension of the ban, the effective date of the ban on plastic bags in general, from January 1, 2021 to January 1, 2022. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Terlahi. On the Moylan amendment, are there anyone else wishing to speak? If not, Senator Moylan, you may close, or would you like to close?
No further comment, Madam Speaker.
There's been an objection. All those in favor of Senator Jim Moylan's amendment, please signify by raising your hand. Motion fails. On the main motion, if not, Senator Lee, you may close.
Sudos Masi, Madam Speaker. And I want to thank you, Madam Speaker, for being a part of this bipartisan coalition supporting Bill 373-35 COR, which also includes Legislative Secretary Amanda Shelton, Senators Mary Torres, Joe San Agustin, Kelly Marsh Titano, Clint Rigel, Pito Terlahi, and Will Castro. I'm so grateful to our community members who supported the original measure. And I can't help but picture the plastic bag monster, I'm not sure if you guys remember this, in the 34th, who attended our first public hearing, with over 100 bags attached to himself to demonstrate how much plastic bag waste the typical Guam family consumes in a year's time. Madam Speaker, these community members help to educate our community and put together outreach and education events to include the University of Guam Center for Island Sustainability and Island Sustainability Community Advisory Board, the Bureau of Statistics and Plans, the Yoji Green Army, Micronesian Climate Change Alliance, the Guam Youth Climate Strike, Ukuru High School's Lend Earth a Friend Leaf Club, Micronesia Conservation Coalition, Guam EPA, Talaza Micronesia, Payless Supermarkets, 7-Day Supermarkets, and the Guam Women's Chamber. This measure ups the ante on the upcoming law that I authored last term, the Choose to Reuse Mga Maadzeg I Plastic Act of 2018. This previous statute represents what could be accomplished 2 years ago. But Madam Speaker and colleagues, we can and will do better today. In addition, Bill 373 leaves in place the carefully considered exemptions for needed or unavoidable plastic bags, like the ones that you use to keep meat sealed or to wrap flowers or bulk items. Plastic trash bags are also exempt from the ban. This 2.0 upgrade recognizes that these exemptions are needed by our business community and residents alike, and therefore leaves that existing list unchanged. Land is a limited supply on an island like ours. Government revenue is also scarce, and there are more important things to spend taxpayer money on than digging holes in the ground to put our trash. Passing Bill 373 will ensure our island has fewer landfills, not more. It will decrease the amount of illegal dumping by eliminating a major source of litter. It will protect our ocean life from further pollution of micro or nanoplastics. It will preserve more of our land for families to build their homes and businesses to grow our economy. And let's not kid ourselves about the big picture on environmental law. In many respects, including on plastic bags, Guam is behind our sister islands of the Pacific. If we're going to purport to be regional leaders, let's also lead by example and enact laws that make us the largest island in Micronesia a better neighbor and a better global citizen. And with that, Madam Speaker, I thank you, I thank the co-sponsors of this measure and my colleagues for their assistance with amendments, and I urge them to support Bill 373-35 COR. Sujus Masi.
On the motion to place it in the voting file, please.
I apologize. On the motion to place Bill 373-35 COR as amended into the third reading file, Madam Speaker.
On the voting file, are there any objections? Seeing or hearing none, motion carries. Colleagues, we are at almost 5 p.m. Assistant Majority Leader, on a motion to recess till Monday at 9. We're going to take a moment's recess. y 35 na legislatura in Guam is back from office. Senator Perez on Bill 185. Your acknowledged.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to place Bill 185-35 at the, on Monday. Or if I can move it to Monday,
You either move to set aside,
or move it to the bottom of the agenda.
to move to the bottom of the agenda on that motion. Are there any objections? Seeing or hearing none. Motion carries. Senator Torres on Bill 312-35.
Madam Chair, I respectfully request that I pass on file until Monday.
Move to set aside this bill just to set aside Bill 312-35 LS on that. Right? So pass on file. On the motion to pass on file, are there any objections? Seeing or hearing none, motion files. Kelly Marsh, Senate Assistant Majority Leader Kelly Marsh Taichino, you are recognized on Bill 417-35.
Saina Ma'asi, Madam Speaker. I'd like to place Bill number 417-35 COR into the third reading file, and I'd like to discuss it.
On that motion, please proceed.
So Bill 417-35 COR, as amended by the Committee on Economic Development, Agricultural, Maritime Transportation, Power and Energy Utilities, and Emergency Response, authored by myself, Tina Rose Muñoz-Barnes, William M. Castro, and Joe S. San-Agustin. Acton Menhita Zen Manafa Mamalik, an act to add a new Article 5 to Chapter 50, Title 12, Guam Code Annotated, relative to establishing the Guam Intra-Regional Commerce Commission. For decades, we have discussed diversifying our economy. This bill works to do exactly that. Bill 417 to establish an Intra-Regional Commerce Commission. Menhita Zen Menefa Maulik. It also tackles other issues on hand. It lifts up the economies of our entire region, which benefits all of us, not just monetarily, but in numerous ways, from having a more secure place in where we live, a more COVID-19 resistant economy, and a better quality of life for all of us. It has the potential to strengthen sustainability initiatives, zero waste, our food security, healthcare issues, tourism, and so much more. We are blessed to live within a region that is rich in numerous ways. We are rich in resources, rich in research. Each island, in fact, has a multitude of types of research going on all the time. And the more that we interact with each other to benefit and avail ourselves of that research and communicate with each other about it, the better off all of us are. Taiwan is also within our region. They have an amazing research and development side to themselves, and they have experimental stations in some of the islands throughout the region. So these are just some examples of what we can be tapping into. And we are also rich in talent. In actuality, we are rich in history of traditional ties that have allowed us to not only survive, but to thrive in these islands for thousands of years. Bill 417 calls for building upon and strengthening those ties. As I mentioned before, that concept of food security, we see at this time how important that is. Food chains in our nation and throughout the world, to some degree, are breaking down. And the more secure that we are regionally, the more that we are putting into place things that will see us through typhoons, transportation breakdowns, and food chain breakdowns, and more. We have examples of agricultural produce coming from Luta or Rhoda, string beans, kamuti. It comes over here by the tonnage, really, every year. And for FestPac, it was a main contributor. We worked with them for a year so that we would have enough taro and so forth for all of the thousands and thousands of visitors who are here. So this is an example of how we can build upon what we have. And we all know that we get some of our favorite foodstuffs from various islands in Micronesia. And there are so many new endeavors that are happening, sustainable, green endeavors. There is weaving and other environmentally kind industries in our region. There's the Yap Eco Leaf Plate Company. There is the Green Banana Paper Company in Koshrai, and they take green waste and they make a product that is highly sought after to the point that they can't even keep up with the demand. CNMI is also working with Hawaii to develop a breadfruit flour industry, and this is happening in various places in our region. In fact, some are calling this breadfruit industry the Pacific's gift to the world, and it's going to help those economies in numerous ways. We could join TUC, that is leading the way in a program to make medicine more affordable and accessible for our people. Kava has revolutionized economies in the South Pacific, and Sakau could here, potentially. We can create cottage industries across the region. We can create new industries together, some of which actually are already in the works. I just can't talk about them because they're still in their proof of concept stage. The Intra-Regional Commerce Commission is to be comprised of the head of GIDA, the governor's chief economic advisor, economists from those, from a like field from the University of Guam, the general manager of the port, community representatives as appointed by the chair of the legislative committee with oversight of regional affairs, the governor and the speaker. And there is the ability of the commission to invite advisory members as it sees fit. This Inter-Regional Commerce Commission had a very good public hearing, and I'm very appreciative for those who took the time to attend. We have extremely supportive letters from GIDA, from the governor's chief economic advisor himself, and from the port. Also part of this commission would be that the Bureau of Statistics and Plans, the Guam Customs and Quarantine, and the Guam Department of Labor are being called upon to provide expert assistance, but of course it is as is feasible, especially at this time when there are so many demands going on. And relative to public planning, import, export, wage, employment trends, and other data that they specialize in. So those will be very key. And I'd like to mention some of the tasks. So really what this is meant to do is be a think tank. With this think tank, they're to be looking for opportunities. They're also very, very importantly, and some of those who testified really appreciated this section, is that they're supposed to be looking for challenges to establishing these businesses. So it's to identify and recommend types of data for the government of Guam to collect to better inform and guide regional economic development for Guam, to assess available resources throughout the region And as I mentioned, we are rich in a variety of resources. To identify various economic and other relevant private and governmental initiatives throughout the region, to develop relationships that have the potential to foster mutually beneficial regional economic and commerce initiatives. And that's key here. I mentioned that this is meant to lift up the entire region, which benefits the community of Guam in numerous ways, directly, but then also indirectly. A place always does better if the whole region is thriving. And to recommend policies and programs. And what was really key in this to me was I know that we get reports, and I'm very appreciative to those reports. We can always go looking for them, and they give us very valuable data and a lot of insights, actually. But beyond that, I wanted to make sure that they came and gave oral presentations to I Legislature in Guahan and to I Magahaga. So in that, it's not just reports, but they are to come each quarter to come and talk about the initiatives or their recommendations of how to make industries happen in our region so that we can have dialogue and so forth. Also, one of the recommendations that we inputted from the public hearing is that this information is taken to the speaker, the senators, and to the governor so that they can take it with them to their regional meetings and make sure that this continues to go across to our region and build up those mutual relationships and efforts. So with that, I ask for everybody's consideration in this, and I would like to add on to the bill if the language is not there to allow legal to make any technical corrections. I'm a strong believer in our region. Our region is something to be proud of, but it's also something that has so much potential for all of us. I spent months actually looking at our potential, and it really is quite amazing. So I hope people see that vision along with me and help us help our community really branch out and reach for some of that diversification that we have long talked about and build up our region at the same time. Siduis Maasi.
Thank you. So you do have a motion then to have legal make any technical corrections if necessary?
Okay.
On that motion, are there any objections? Seeing or hearing none, motion carries. Anybody else on the main motion? Senator Perez, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to commend the author of this bill for all her passion and thought about developing our economy and looking at from a regional perspective. So I do look forward to the progress of this task force. But I do also, also concerned about, well, first of all, does this task force, maybe it's a point of inquiry, would this task force also look at, perhaps a spread of invasive species? Because with the more travel, the higher risks of introducing endangered species, especially into the Northern Marianas region, which is, does not have the brown tree snake, from what I can tell. And I think it's important to kind of keep these, look at what potential impacts to intra-regional commerce could have, and to protect these very, these ecosystems that are very unique, and protect the biodiversity. So just a question for the author.
Senator Tatino, would you like to yield?
Hungin. And I appreciate the question because this is an important concern. We hear all the time about the effects of these different species that are making their way to islands such as ours, which do become very vulnerable. And we do hear that within the region, We are trying to keep them at bay so that the brown tree snake does not get up to the CNMI or to places like Palau and so forth. So I appreciate that kind of concern, and this would be something that the commission would absolutely need to be looking at. They need to look at these issues very holistically, and it's a large part of why I have members such as the head of the Port Authority and that the Guam Customs and Quarantine are meant to be part of the work of this commission, because again, those are absolutely the types of issues that they need to be alert to.
Senator Paris.
Okay, so just to confirm, it is included in this task force, concerns of invasive species.
Senator Marsh.
The term invasive species is not here per se. There are not any specifics where we start breaking down all the types of concerns about weight, tonnage, intra-regional trade laws. We didn't get into that, but as a think tank, they are here to recommend and to identify. And then it's up to the policymakers to take that information and help smooth out any barriers, to ask these kinds of questions to make sure that it's been comprehensive, and so forth. So they are the heads of very relevant fields. These types of concerns should be there, and then they are to, as I said, pass on their findings to policymakers and the governor, who will then either craft legislation or see what they can do as oversight. So I think within that entire relationship, there are responsibilities on both the commission and those that receive the information.
Senator Paris.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. I do actually, I guess perhaps I would like to add a member of the task force, basically a director of the Guam Department of Agriculture or their appointee, to ensure.
Yes, on that motion.
If I could just respond to that, we could put that person. The other thing that we were weighing out are the time demands.
Senator,
Yes.
I'm allowing a motion to be made. Are you going to speak on that motion?
Yes, I'm speaking on that.
Okay, on the motion.
Yes, we did consider a couple of things here, is the number of people that are involved and also the time involved. One thing that we do know is that there's a whole lot of productivity of different types going on, and people are on various task force and other things. And so we were trying to really harness in their time in a very thoughtful way. So I would think that as maybe in support services, I know for the Department of Agriculture, their time is also kind of stretched thin, but we could add it in the support services that they would be an identified entity that would be called upon for advice and data. As a member, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think we went for an odd number, 1, 2. Yeah, so it would create an even number, which is always difficult in
Senator, so
in a
you can
task
either
force.
object or make an amendment to Senator Perez's amendment?
Yeah, so my amendment
in-
would be to place it in the support services, that Department of Agriculture representation.
So you have an amendment to Senator Perez's amendment, and that needs to be written out?
Is hers written out?
Senator, Assistant Majority Leader, with all due respect, there are courtesies that are given as chosen by the presider. You either
Well,
want
no, I
to
was
amend
truly
the
asking,
amendment.
is hers written
We are in a
out?
moment's recess.
She
And that's, Y mi 85 na legislatura in Guam is back from recess. This time I'm going to recognize Senator Perez.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So just
I'm
for
gonna ask you to
clarification
move-
purposes, do I need to withdraw a previous
Yes,
amendment?
yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
All right, so I move to withdraw my previous amendment.
On that motion, without an exception, seeing or hearing none, motion carries. Senator Perez, on your amendment.
Okay, thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to place or proffer an amendment. It's to go into section 50509 under expert assistance, and the amendment reads, the Guam Department of Agriculture shall provide expert assistance as is feasible to the Commission relative to invasive species concerns.
On that motion, anyone wishing to speak? Are there any? Senator March Titino.
I just wanted to quickly say that I support this amendment, and I appreciate the thoughtfulness of the proffer, Sujus Masi.
Thank you, Assistant Majority Leader. On the amendment, anyone else wishing to speak? If not, are there any objections? Seeing or hearing none, motion carries. On the main motion, if no one else wishes to speak, Senator March Titino, you may close.
Sainamaasi Maske Halu. So I think I covered everything pretty thoroughly, and I know that we all have obligations to get to, so I thank everybody for their time and attention. I just continue to ask for their support to have us help each other within the region and diversify our economy and just find some solutions going forward for all of us in numerous ways. So with that, I would like to take Bill 417-35 COR and place it in the voting file.
On that motion, are there any objections? Seeing or hearing none, motion carries. Assistant Majority Leader, recess till 9 Monday.
Sainamaasi Maske Halu. I motion that we recess until 9 a.m. Monday morning.
On that motion, we are in recess.